What's up, everybody? Patrick here. Just wanted to hop on quick, apologize in advance. This was our first interview and we kind of messed up the recording. So this episode will be audio only. Videos will be back next week. This episode will still be uploaded onto YouTube just with a static background. And then, like I said, videos will be back next week. I'd like to welcome our guest for this episode. His name is AMER ABU SHAKRA. Dan and I kind of both heard of him through StudentWorks, where he blew the Rookie of the Year record out of the water in his first year, and then blew the overall record out of the water in his second year, and then kind of surprised everybody and left. He went on to start his own consulting business, consulting for other people, other contractors trying to build businesses in different trades. So we go deep into all that and deep into a few other things. Without further delay, welcome AMER.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Cool. So, if you don't mind, would just like to start talking to you a little bit about StudentWorks, where all of our paths kind of cross.
The cult.
In a way, the cult, yeah.
Yeah.
So I know, as Dan just mentioned, you did 225 your first year and 500 your second year. So I just had a question for you, kind of about those. Like when I was there, Chris Thompson, CT, shout out to CT, would always kind of talk about what your unique ability is and how that's what you should really be aiming to focus your time on, whatever you are uniquely gifted at, and try to delegate as much of the other things as you can. So my question is, what would you consider to be your unique ability?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's something that Chris actually sent me an email to help me decipher it, and he helped me work that through. And it really came down, I think, to two things. One of them for sure was my ability to enroll others into my vision and my goal. I just love the idea of creating something like a mission or a goal, and then getting people a part of it. So this started in school, where whenever there's a project, I'm the one who's moving things around, organizing stuff, and getting it to my vision. Also being open to other people's visions, but people were just like, yeah, no, this sounds good, let's do it. And enrolling people into your business doesn't mean just hiring people. It's also, hey, here's my product, and here's why I truly believe this product is going to be of great help to you and your life. And so I just love everything that comes around enrollment, and otherwise you can call this sales, right? And my second ability is the ability to create systems. So I am very lazy. I like to consider myself to be a very lazy person. So what does that mean? That means if I don't have to do something, then I'm going to make sure that I don't have to do it ever. So for example, this was a big sort of, I won't say big, it was just a debate that I had with an individual in StudentWorks. His name is Marnus. He held the record. He did 309,000 the year before I came in.
That was the overall record?
Correct, yeah. Yeah. And he had this idea that you could not run a successful painting business unless you were a really good painter. And judging from how I saw the business, I actually saw, no, I think there is a way that you can run a very successful business without knowing how to paint. So, disclaimer, I'm not a good painter at all. I think I painted like 4 times in my life.
I'm not the best window cleaner either.
Yeah, and I didn't want to paint. I just knew the amount of money I would make per hour painting is so much lower than it is going out door knocking or going out and recruiting. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to build systems within my business to ensure that the stuff that I don't have to do gets done without me. And what that means is I had to really go from scratch and break down, like, what does a $500,000 business look like? How many people does it need? What are its key players? How many doors do I have to knock on? And then I would work backwards and then start filling in the necessary systems and people. to ensure it. And this systemization is what got me to build this consulting business in the first place. It's because it's how I see everything, right? It's been fruitful so far. People have been getting results in the consulting business like crazy. Within a couple of weeks, people are closing $20,000 to $26,000 jobs, and within my business, every system had a backup plan as well. So I got a lot done in the same amount of time that everybody else, and with less stress. I didn't have to climb ladders or, paint or, last minute do stuff on my own or drive this around. And I just kind of built that within my business from day one.
Wow. Did you ever, obviously I totally agree with your mindset that you don't have to be a good painter to run a painting business, or like we don't have to be a good window cleaner to run a window cleaning business. Was there ever a time that you wished you had been a better painter?
So actually, no, because that meant there was never a plan B. And I think that's where most people get caught up. If I was a good painter and we were short-staffed, it's time to go plan B, where I have to roll up my sleeves. Which a lot of people have that option.
Yeah, you burn your boats at the shore. Yeah.
Exactly. So I sort of burnt the ships at the shore and said, hey, if I don't have the right staff, this job's not getting done. So I have to be, instead of being a good painter, now I had to be a better sort of fire extinguisher. I had to learn how to talk to clients in way tougher scenarios than most people have ever been, because I just actually cannot solve this problem right now. And it's like, hey, can you just buy us another day? And here's what we can do to make it up. So not having a plan B has been actually a huge advantage.
That's incredible, because I feel like a lot of people, at least like just purely talking about StudentWorks operators, business owners who run this kind of business, I feel like there's so much anxiety around, what if I can't do this job on time? What if a guy gets sick or quits? Like, what am I going to do? I feel like there's so much anxiety around that. And it sounds to me like you've kind of come up with the solution. Like, a lot of people's solution to that is, well, I'll just do the work if I have to. And you've kind of put systems in place that mean that you don't ever have to do that. There's always another way out. And I really like that. That's really cool.
Here's one thing you should note, and I'm going to say it clearly. I think it's more stressful to run a business with a small goal than it is to run a business with a bigger goal. Okay, so it's more stressful to run a smaller business. Why do I say that? When you have a smaller business, you have 4 employees, one of them calls sick. Well, that's 25% of your workforce that just disappeared the next day. When you have 25 clients and one of them gets angry, I mean, depending on the size, that could be like 5 to 10% of your revenue for your business. Whereas if you run a bigger business and somebody calls in sick, I mean, that's maybe 5%, 2% of your workforce. When you have 200, 300 clients and one of them goes to court, I mean, and let's call it a $5,000 like job that you might never see the money on, that's 1% of your revenue. So you never get actually stressed out, and you have the power of numbers behind you, which is kind of a superpower, because it just goes from, oh, this is the reality, like, oh, if I don't get this client, like, I'm screwed, to the only thing you have to manage is just your ego and your emotions, which you have more control on.
Which can be difficult to manage those at times as well.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, it's way easier to manage that than it is to manage somebody else's ego and decision making and pulling out their wallet to make a decision. You know what I mean?
It's funny because I've felt the exact same way about scale is getting easier. Every year that we grow, I feel like it's a lot easier. And I've never thought about it in that perspective. I've always kind of figured just we have better systems now. But you're absolutely right. That's 100% true. If your problems just become so marginal on that layer, and if someone doesn't show up to work, you're like, whatever, I have 45 other employees that'll just come in the next day and do it.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it. So,
Yeah.
did you want to go? I'll let you run through your question.
Sure. Yeah. You know, I mean, to be honest, like that answered a lot of what I wanted to know.
That's it. Call's done. We're
But
good.
yeah, let's close up. No, I was actually wondering because like one of the things that obviously we do a lot of and going to be doing more of this year is hiring. So I was just wondering like what your hiring process was like your year running your 500 or whatever. What was your hiring process like? Like what are you looking for in your painters? I guess it was for us. It would be cleaners.
Yeah, got it. Good question. So there's two places you can find employees. You can find employees outside of your business or inside your business. So, well, obviously, if they're employees, they're already inside the business. But what I'm looking for mostly are leaders, people that can take on more for the sake of the business. Now, remember how I said there's a lot of things in my business that I didn't have to do, that I didn't want to do as well. So I'll give you an example. Picking up paint and supplies from the supply store. Instead of me doing those drives, I would look at a crew of 2 employees, see who's the best and most ambitious, and who has a goal that I understand within the business, like, oh, they want to buy a car or they're saving up for school or whatever. And I'll go up to them and say, hey, look, I'm willing to give you maybe a 50-cent, 75-cent raise, maybe a $1 raise, and your added responsibility is you're going to have to start your day 15 minutes earlier, 20 minutes earlier, and you're going to have to buy this stuff for the crew. And at the end of the day, you just have to pack up for an extra 15 minutes. And yes, you're being paid for that extra time and you're getting a raise for that. So right there, I just solved the problem within one container of my business, which is that crew, by promoting leadership. Now, if we're getting employees from the outside, I mean, it's a pretty straightforward. You have to define the role that you're hiring for. You need to go on, ZipRecruiter, Indeed, Facebook Jobs, whatever the best spots to find talent within your area. And if you're always wondering, well, what's the best place to find talent? Go to the supply store in your area and talk to the person behind the counter. They see contractors all the time. They hear contracting talk all the time. Hey, I'm new to the area. I'm looking to start my business. What advice can you tell me about the best places to hire employees? I'm like, oh, everybody in this area only uses Yelp. Okay, great. You're going to use Yelp. So once you define the marketplace you're going to be targeting, you have to write some ad copy. And you can actually go online, and if you're looking to post an ad on Indeed and you run a plumbing business, go on Indeed, look up other plumbing businesses' ads, and just, find 3 of them, take all 3, and then, take the first half of the first one, the second half, the middle of the second one, and the last, and just combine them into your own, because it's proven to work. Once you have that, then the sales process starts, or the recruiting process starts. Recruiting and sales are actually pretty close, but that's another conversation. The recruiting process starts with a phone call. So I've created an 8-minute call script, a 9-minute call script where you can kind of siphon through and ask questions that people cannot rehearse for. And in that first 8 minutes, you're just ironing out logistics. Where are you in the area? This is the type of job. Are you sure this is what you're looking for? Do you have a vehicle? Do you have any certifications? You want to imagine in the first step, you're sifting through robots, and you're just looking for a robot that's doing the best, right? And obviously that's still the first process. Once you've found, let's say I'm on the phone with Bob, and Bob sounds like he is logistically fit for my business. Then at the end of the call, I would actually send him an email with an expectation document. And this is a 7 to 8 page expectation document of what I like to see in my business. Now, what you, Patrick, want to see in your business and what you, Dan, want to see in your business is different from what I want to see. There's different things important for you than I. And this is the values of the business. One of the things I value are the 2 biggest things is integrity, people just doing what they say. And number 2, having no non-communication. No non-communication. So what does that mean? That means if there's any sort of grievance or annoyance, they always come to me. They're always transparent. If those 2 values are present in my business, I'm more than happy. I think I could solve every.
I totally agree with that. Those are great ones. Yeah, I think that's what everybody should be looking for, right? In this kind of industry, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's really important. So I send them the expectation document, and then I set up in that same email the face-to-face interview. And this is a 20-minute interview, and the questions that I've gone through, I've spent years like picking the right ones, and I had like a recruitment agency help me out with the questions through my network.
I was about to say, can you send us those? Yeah.
Sure, yeah, no problem. So it's the face-to-face interview. You can take notes, you can analyze them, and then after that, well, there's the final meeting where you're just going through expectations and talking pay, and getting them through a 2-week onboarding process. And then in those 2 weeks, you can really find out if they are good to have or not good to have.
So can I ask, what was your drop rate in terms of, let's say you got 10 people qualified and you were happy with their interviews? And
Are you talking about the phone interview or the in-person interview?
so from the moment you basically decide that you want them to start on a probationary period, so before onboarding, so you basically have decided that these 10 people are ready to go and they're hired as long as they show up and do the job properly. How many of those people stayed versus didn't work out?
Stayed for, say, at least 2 weeks.
I would always manage people's expectations at that point, saying 50%. Like, even after they went through 2 interviews.
Sorry, 50 or 15?
50 is 5
So you're saying
That seems high.
So you're telling me
Wow.
if you hired 10 people, 5 of them would work out.
Yeah, and that's how I would see it, because I think that's like a very conservative number. What I've observed.
That's excellent. Last year I think I had like a 25%.
Yeah.
Or it was 20%. If I tracked a month and a half, 2 months later, how many people I hired off the bat that worked out, it was 20%. But that was just from hiring people through online ads. That didn't include referrals from workers or anything like that.
Did you have a 2-step interview process?
So my interview process was, first I would just sift through all the applications. I'd pick the best ones. I'd call them. I'd do what you said. I'd go through, basic requirements you have to hit. And then after that, I would almost reverse sell them. I would explain to them what the job is. And then
try to get them not to be interested in it. Tell them all the bad things. Yeah.
Not necessarily like that, but I would tell them objectively what the job is.
Yeah.
Knowing that a lot of people are just turned off by a lot of those things and would just cut themselves out. Anyone that sounded interested that could basically just carry a good conversation, I would say, all right, Jeff, this has been great. The next step would be to bring you out to an in-person training. In the winter, we don't do jobs, so I would just do another final interview, like you said. But in the summer, I would say, I want you to text me your name and details in 2 days from now at 9 a.m. And if they missed the ball or they didn't text me, I knew I was like, I don't have to waste time with this person. They're not interested or they're not able to show up on time. Anyone that did, in the winter, I would have a formal interview with them. And in the summer, I would just bring them to a job site. And then at that point, after the day of work or after the formal interview, I would decide, who gets to stay. So when I was telling you the number 20%, that came from the winter when it was all over FaceTime and Zoom. And then
how many of those people stayed?
20% of the people that I hired stayed, and the rest either ended up not wanting it anymore, or
that's after their first day on the job.
No. This is before.
Okay.
Or I let them come out for a day and decided it wasn't for them, and I just let them go, or they didn't work out after a week or something.
But 20% of those people at the beginning stayed with you for at least a month or 2 weeks.
For half the summer at least.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Also, you had mentioned something there, Amer. At the risk of this sounding like an ad, how is ZipRecruiter? Have you used that?
So ZipRecruiter is maybe over $250 to $400 a month. It's not cheap at all, but it posts on all other ad places.
We used it when we started.
We used Recruity.
I used both.
Okay.
We used both when we started, and I found that it literally, all the applicants I was getting were exactly the same as the ones I was getting on Indeed, and I wasn't really getting anyone from anywhere else, so I just canceled it.
Yeah. So again, this is all location like dependent, right? So you're talking Toronto here, right? So it may not be as fruitful as other areas for ZipRecruiter, right?
The point I think to extrapolate here is that wherever you are running a business, a lot of people think they should just go on Indeed or just go on Facebook and post jobs, and then they're like, I'm not getting the people I need. What am I doing wrong? And you need to try 10, 15 different areas of recruiting in order to determine the 1, 2, or 3 that actually are giving you value, and then you can just stick to those.
Correct.
And I also liked what you said about looking within the business for people.
Correct.
First, I like that.
Well, that was that was the biggest thing that I got from you. Honestly, I was always asking my workers for referrals of other people that would be good candidates. But when you told me that your entire staff was referrals from each other, I like that almost made me see okay, this is totally doable and it makes sense. So I just started pounding my guys every week. Okay, I know you have friends.
Just keep asking.
I know. Keep asking. And by the end of the year, half my staff we're all friends with each other. And when you have bad relationships, that's terrible. You don't want referrals working with each other. But when you have good relationships and they like the job, it's amazing because they don't even care about the job. They just want to have a good time and work with their buddies and be a part of something together.
Yeah. So one thing to note about having that referral program within your company is you have to be a very, very rigorous leader where you're actually setting the expectations. I would say, hey, do you know any smart, really competent, integrous friends that can work this job? I don't just ask, do you know any friends? Because then I would follow up that sentence with, because, Emma, I got to be honest with you. If you bring somebody on that doesn't work, I'm going to have to fire them. So with that in mind, who do you know that you trust, will be able to get this job done and you'll also have a good time with? And then that sets the right expectation. So right from the get-go, I'm really putting my foot in the sand saying, look, this is just the inevitable. If they're not good, they're getting fired. And it puts that responsibility on them because who wants to bring a friend in that gets fired? Geez, right?
Yeah, and also the good employees, obviously if you're asking these people for referrals, you consider them to be a good employee. In my experience, my guys, whenever I've asked them, they've either given me somebody who's good or they'll look at their friends and be like, I have some people, but I don't want their job performance to be reflected on me, so I don't want to, you know what I'm saying? The smart ones know that whoever they give is going to reflect on them to a certain extent, so they don't want to put themselves at risk in that way,
But here's one thing: you should never assume anything about anybody. That's one thing I learned. You can ask Dan about with even customers. You can't assume they know what you're talking about or they're smart or anything. You just assume everybody needs to hear it 3 times and you just act accordingly.
That's a great philosophy. Yeah, protect your ass. Yeah.
So just to jump into another question that I had that I've never asked you this, but being where I think I know what you're going to say, but I'm interested to see if this is it. Having done all the things you've done and being where you are now, I feel that we're similar in that our businesses are not in a place where we have all these problems raining down on us that we need to fix and we just wish would be solved. At least I can speak for myself in saying that I would be perfectly content continuing on the trajectory that I'm on now for the next 10 years, and everything would be great. So it's hard to wish that things were different or to be fearful. But my question is what is something that you fear may or may not occur down the road that may have to do with your business, but doesn't necessarily have to?
Yeah. Well, it's actually a pretty straightforward answer. I mean, I am scared that December 2021 rolls around and we haven't even cleared 100,000 in revenue. I mean, that would be pretty devastating.
You're talking about for the consulting, business now, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I did give myself 3 years to fully see this through, and I'm on like, I think we started the first sale we made was in May, right? So I'm still like,
You still got a little ways to
What are
that
you at
first
now?
year. Yeah.
What are you at
well,
now?
we're at like 13,000 in sales, right? But you got to also remember, we're not doing any sales. The sales we've done was just for the sake of data collection and understanding of our products and if they work or not. It's just actually, it was a test. Sales starts when our Facebook ads go live, and as we speak, they're all being reviewed. So I'm just afraid December rolls around and it's like, like there goes like a year, because it's now would have been 2 years removed where I could have run a painting business, and I know I would have made a healthy income. And
You can't think that way.
No, you
Go
can't
back.
think that.
no, I know, but you will think that way, and it's just a matter of how quickly you can get rid of it out of your head. Like, it's still inevitable.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So what would that? Let's say that happened.
Yeah.
And we fast forward. It's December, and you're at 50K,
Oh.
and you're not at all where you thought you'd be. How do you feel, and what's your next move?
Well, the next move would be actually setting a strict deadline for December 2022. And I would come up with a goal and say, this is it. Like, this is the last year. Like, this is it. And I would treat it as such. And I think the sense of urgency would reach levels it never reached before. I'd be doing everything humanly possible. And I would make that clear to my business partner and to people in my life. Like, hey, this is it. Like, if we don't hit these targets, I mean...
We're going to call it a day.
I mean, yeah, I don't know but that's the thing. If December 2022 rolls around and I still didn't hit my goal, I don't know if I would throw in the towel. That's the thing, because I mean, you're 3 years deep in this, and my knowledge on the industry has grown so much. And to just throw it away, I think my plan at that point would be to supplement my income with another way. I would maybe buy a franchise and have it run a painting franchise more passively and still work.
You would buy a franchise and then hire someone else to run it, and then just take a percentage for coaching them.
I mean, yeah, it's what I do. I have the systems for a franchise, right? I can just have a franchise to run. I have the expertise, but people keep forgetting that just the amount of time it takes to build a business, that I can't do that. But by December 2022, I mean, I got to start making some money, and thankfully my real estate has been paying great amounts, but I mean, who knows how consistent that's going to be, right? So something has to happen by then, but still, we are 2 years removed from that moment. So 23 months, but
You've got time.
yeah.
I want to highlight how pragmatic and practical that is, because I feel like a lot of people go into business because they're passionate about something or they're excited about an idea, and there's no end in sight, and they just like go all the way down the rabbit hole of like investing all their money into it often it's like a terrible business idea, and they just run themselves into debt with it. But then on the flip side, there's a lot of people that just give up.
Just
They
a bit
try
too early.
something.
Have you ever seen that photo of like the two
Yes,
miners?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Diamond?
Yeah.
Doesn't know what I'm
He's like a
talking about.
sliver away from the diamonds, and he turns around and gives up. Yeah.
I would hate for that to happen,
That's what it is.
the worst.
That photo lives in my head rent free.
Yeah.
But I think that to get into that mindset is it requires, I guess, a lot of self-awareness and experience, because on one end, being self-aware, your ego can't be tied into the success or failure of it. But on the other end, also experience is just knowing that like it's okay to not be where you want to be, but have the capacity to see what you've done so far and then make a judgment call on whether or not, like, I'm not at my goal, but XYZ is working. So, I think the market is telling me that I'm onto something here, and I should continue.
Yeah. My biggest motivator when it comes to this stuff is like Jeff Bezos. Like, 1995, he quit his job at Wall Street making $350,000 US which is adjusted to inflation in today's dollars is like around 700,000 a year. He quit his job to sell books online. And the internet was almost nothing. That is literally the equivalent of me, leaving StudentWorks to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to build the next Bitcoin. Like that is the equivalent. It's just such a young thing that nobody really understands. And I'm just going to go out there. But this guy, Jeffrey, he said, you know what? By the way, that's how he signs his letter to investors, letter to shareholders, Jeffrey Bezos. But there he is, 1995, 1996, barely getting results, and he's still cracking at it. And then 1997, they reach 800% return. They go from, I think, 14.7 million to, I don't know, 800% of that. So he blows up the business.
And the rest is history.
He's the second richest man on earth after Elon Musk, believe it or not.
I think they keep trading
Just
every
recently,
day.
yeah, I think they keep going back and forth.
I saw that Elon passed him, and the next day Jeff was back in the ranks. And
Dude, Elon went from 26 billion of January last year to 188 billion of January of this year.
Crazy.
it doesn't even matter at that
insane.
point.
No.
Once you pass,
Once you're in the billions, it actually doesn't really matter how much money you have.
Yeah, once you pass a couple billion, the Reddit post that you sent me. There's a very interesting post on Reddit. If anyone wants to look it up, you can probably just Google Reddit, what it's like to be a billionaire. And there's a top post that basically breaks down an insider's view of the different income brackets of massive wealth and what their lifestyle is like. And it starts out from anyone making somewhere from
1 to 10 million.
who's worth, I think, up to 10 million, and then 10 to 30, and then 30 to 100, and then 100 plus, and then billionaires. It was very, very fascinating.
Yeah.
I wanted to actually ask you about your real estate. What do you have going on there, and how do we do it?
Yeah. So one thing you should note, I was actually the first business in StudentWorks to incorporate. So that means all my earnings went to a corporation.
Why did you do that?
Pardon me?
What made you do that?
Well, for one, in my first year of StudentWorks, I made a good amount of money that I just was enough for me to live on for a good amount of time. So I knew this second check that was coming in, I just didn't need the money. And if it was paid to the personal, I would have paid like a 43% income tax. So instead of paying that 43% income tax, I said, you know what, I'll put it in a corporation, I'll pay my 13% corporate tax, and I would use those funds and that extra purchasing power, that 30% extra purchasing power, to invest in some real estate. And so what I've done is I found somebody that I really trust, who is an expert in the field, and here's the really important one, who's still early in the field that he wants to prove himself. And I think that's like very, very important. So I found that individual, and now it was time to see, okay, how much can I trust him? So I went through that process, hundreds of phone calls, went through the whole 8 miles. I could trust this guy with my life. So I said, you know what, find me some deals. The first deal we did together was basically he had a property that he wanted to flip, and he needed financing for the flip. So I acted as a loan, like I just gave him a loan to flip the house against the house itself. So if he didn't pay the loan, I would take the house. Like it was a pretty favorable deal. And he showed his confidence in going ahead with that financing. So
was that his first flip?
Pardon me?
Was that his first one?
No. That was like
He had done a bunch
his 25th, 30th flip. This guy's
okay. So, and he was using other people's money and a bit of his own each time.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
So I funded that deal. He paid me back at 25% in 8 months. So then another deal rolled into the table out in Sudbury. So I'm located in Toronto. So just that's a 3.5 hour drive. For an apartment building. So this was an apartment building. It's 11 units, and he was looking to raise money to put a down payment on it. The down payment was like $350,000, so you have to raise $350,000. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna look for a couple people." I was one of the people on the list.
5%, 20%.
Pardon me?
What percentage is that down? How much was the building?
It was around 33%. It's a commercial building.
Wait, so you're telling me it was $1 million for
It was
11
780,000. Yeah.
For 11 units?
That's how cheap it is outside Toronto.
Oh my
Yes.
god.
I always catch myself speaking to people outside of, of Toronto.
How far is Sudbury from like outside Toronto?
4-hour drive.
I
It's a
just
4-hour
moved
drive.
here.
4 hours.
4 hours. Okay.
I
It's
always
pretty
catch
far.
myself hearing
It's pretty
people,
far, yeah.
talk about
But it's
that,
doable. It's drivable.
and I'm like, oh my god, this person's just buying like houses left and right, and they don't really make that much. And then I hear, and then I'm like, wait, how much does it cost? And they're like, oh, like 6 hours out of Toronto, there's houses for like 80 grand. And I'm like, oh, okay.
That's
That makes sense.
crazy.
You're putting
wow.
like 10% down then.
Wow.
But yeah, no, I mean, listen, if you're able to get a return like that, then fuck yeah. Do
Yeah.
it.
So
That's
I love
crazy.
his investing strategy. It's because the idea is over time, people are going to move out of Toronto. And I strongly believe that. There's a lot of millennials in Toronto that will never, ever, ever afford the houses in Toronto. So that's where Sudbury comes in, right? And those places. So the deal rolled in. I had him fly me out to Sudbury, so I can see the deal myself. I met the manager of the building. I met the tenants.
So he invested in your investment.
So went out, saw the building, saw the tenants, saw the managers, talked to random people in the street, got an understanding of the Sudbury area. Went to the basement, saw the electrical, looked behind the walls, went through like the place was disgusting. Like the neighbor was like selling crack. It was a well-known crack
Nice.
dealer, so it
That's
was like
our
I knew what I was
house
getting
used to
myself
be owned by a
into.
crack dealer.
Pardon me?
The former owners of our house, their son was a drug dealer in the garage.
Yeah, there you go, right? But those are always like good deals if you look at them properly, right? So
Ex drug dealing houses.
yeah. So chose to make the investment, and ever since then, it's been extremely fruitful. At the worst moment of the coronavirus is when we bought the apartment. At like the worst day we bought it. It was like timing could not have been more perfect, and yeah, it is paid fruitfully. And here's the cool thing that people, my brothers always ask me this: why don't you just invest in stocks? Why don't you just do this? Well, all the best stocks are American, and the capital gains tax that you pay on American stocks if you're in Canada are like 50% or more. And on top of that, investing in stocks through a corporation is a whole other story.
Yeah. A whole other nightmare.
Yeah.
Whereas in real estate, if you invest as a shareholder loaner, so it's like you're loaning to like a company, it's like done in a specific way. Unless the building or the asset is sold, you don't pay capital gains tax.
Because you're keeping it in the corp.
Oh yeah.
Exactly. So it's pretty damn cool how you can structure things.
But
in real
isn't it the
estate.
same way if you sold it? Okay, so what you're saying is if you own stocks and then you sold the stocks, you would be paying your corp would still have to pay capital gains on it.
Correct. Yes.
But if you have real estate that you sell, the corp doesn't have to pay capital gains.
No.
on
If it sells, you still have to. But if you set it up as a loan and they're just like, we just refinance the building, you don't pay capital gains
Wow.
tax.
Okay.
If
That's
you
powerful.
refinance.
Are you recouping your investment and then you're trying to get a monthly or yearly payout from it in recurring revenue, or are you just trying to get like your rent checks basically?
Yeah, so I actually am not interested in the monthly revenue yet. I think I'm going to be more interested in monthly income once I hit like 1.3 million in cash, because until that point, like I want to own a building outright myself. So until then, I want to build up my capital by buying, flipping, refinancing until I get to that point, and hopefully the money from the consulting also supplements that. But basically, the math on that is on 1.3 million, I could purchase an apartment in Toronto with a manager overseeing it that would pay me after taxes, after corporate stuff, around 75 to 80,000 passively per year, and that is the goal. Yes, you can say, yeah, you can take that 1.3 million and put it in a GIC mutual fund or.
When you say apartment, you don't mean an apartment building. You mean one apartment.
No, an apartment building. 1.3 is enough for a down payment for like a 4.5 million.
Oh, I see what
10
you're
to
saying.
20.
Okay, okay. I was like, you're not
Yeah,
good
it's
luck.
like 1.3.
A
You're not
building.
getting more than one
Buy a
unit.
No, that would be
square
the
of
down
land.
payment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the plan for now, and so I got paid out on the first deal. The second deal, we're looking
So it was
to
a one-time
refinance.
payout. Like you
The first one
invested
was a flip.
and you got your money out.
Yeah, it's the first one. Yeah, and then the second one is that we're looking to refinance closer to December of this year, which was also way ahead of schedule, and that return on that can be anywhere. I'll knock on wood. anywhere from-
On that one, did you guys do any renos on the
Oh,
the
dude,
Sudbury?
we put $100,000 in just renovations in that.
Wow,
apartment.
and it's 11 units, and you renoed all of them, or just a few?
I think we renoed 6. But 6 and like the hallways, the stairs,
Yeah, the
and
common
like,
areas.
laundry room.
So just to confirm, you gave him a
Wow.
dollar and you basically got $1.25 back, 8 months later.
On the first one.
On the first one, correct.
Yeah. So it just, you're out of the deal. Like you got paid and you're gone.
The money takes time to get here, but yeah, the money's on the way.
No, I just wanted to confirm, like you're not holding
out. He's
an
not holding
interest in the
Nope.
deal still. Okay.
No, because that building is actually sold.
It's sold already. Yeah. Cool. Amer, I just actually wanted to bring it back quickly here to the consulting business. I think I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about that. I was just wondering, like, you came from StudentWorks, ran this huge business yourself. What turned you on to the idea of consulting? What got you excited about that?
Well, at first I was like, okay, this is going pretty good, but at the end of the day, I'm not actually a business owner. I'm a franchisee, right?
Okay. I feel like a lot of StudentWorks operators have that feeling.
So my first idea was actually to start another franchise. Like, I'm going to start my own painting franchise, right? But then I realized, I got to like understand the back end of stuff, and it didn't seem fun. So then I was like, okay, but I still want to solve a problem in the industry. And then I realized that a lot of what I was learning in StudentWorks, I was doing better than like some contractors in my area. Like these 40-year-old contractors been in the industry.
Pretty much all of them.
All of them, yeah. I mean, I kind of, it just felt unfair that I had all this knowledge, that I had the right mentors in place that helped me guide through this. And there didn't exist any system for like, there's a plumber who was interested in starting his own business. Like, he didn't know where to go. If there's a carpenter who was ready to start up his own shop, he doesn't know what to do. I mean, we have all these RET seals and certifications and apprentice programs, but the moment somebody has to run a business, it's like, oh, well, yeah, you know what? You got to pay your dues, young man. You got to go build your reputation for 5 years. And
You can go to trade school to learn a trade, but you can't go to business school to learn how to run a business.
No. So I said, you know what? There's 2 ways to solve this problem. One, I can get on one-on-one phone calls and help them with the process, which we did. It works. But good luck organizing phone calls with tradesmen who are busy 24/7. So I said, you know what? These phone calls are kind of sounding the same every single time. What if I just built a program that's pretty easy to follow with its own resources that contractors can follow, and on top of that, it's supplemented with 2 calls a week that I can assist them with. And the solution here, Patrick, to answer your question, the reason why I went to this point is I didn't feel satisfied solving problems for housewives and their blue wall. I didn't get satisfied from just like painting walls. Not at the size of the business that I was doing it, but I did know I would get more satisfaction by solving more of a long-term problem. I mean, if I solve a contractor's problem to start a business or solving Nancy's problem with the color of the wall, I just knew this guy's life will change. Nancy will forget about the wall in 3 days, right? So I just felt like if I was going to invest a sort of energy into something like this, I'm either going to run a $2 million painting business where I have employees that can change their life, and that actually ends up paying off, like what Dan is building here. I mean, you're going to reap the rewards, Patrick, in a year or two when you see the amount of stuff that you're learning through that process, right?
100%. I'm already reaping the rewards.
I'm telling you, right? So it's either that path, or I can just go out and create something. And that's the itch that I had that most people didn't, is I wanted to create something from nothing, a solution from out of nowhere.
And I really like that. And I think that we've all kind of in this industry and like, like the trade industry noticed what you just kind of pointed out, that there's a lot of people who want to run a business, and it seems like the only real way to do it is to like work for 5 to 10 years for somebody else and then kind of do your own thing off from that. But there's a lot of people just kind of running these like subsistence businesses where like they book the work, they produce it themselves, and they're never able to kind of elevate it to the point that it's like an actual business that they own.
It's like an actual problem, and there's a way to measure problems in an industry, and there's 4 levels. One, the first level is that the industry doesn't know that there's a problem. Okay. The second level of awareness, it's like they know that there's a problem, but they don't know that a solution exists. The third stage is they know there's a problem. They know that there's solutions that exist, but like they don't know how to choose them. And then the fourth level is they know all the problems and they know all the solutions. Okay? In the specific contracting industry, we're at like level 1 and 2, where like they don't even know there's a problem, and if they do, they don't know that there's a solution.
Yeah. I totally agree. Yep.
So what that tells me that the industry is unoptimized. And if I can be the first person to start optimizing and organizing this industry, I will reap the first mover benefits. And if you know the first mover theory in economics is you're the first person to solve a specific problem in an industry. And if I can do that, I will reap the benefits. And the ultimate goal here is to raise the standard on what it means to be a contractor. I kind of like to speak to the existing outlook on contractors, and it's this sort of Cold War contractor. It's like this European guy who's in his 50s, who's bald and
You're
like
not
has
wrong.
fat fingers.
Shout out
and,
to Mitko.
yeah, but like bald and smokes cigarettes all the time and is always
Not so much
late
Mitko anymore.
and has his stuff all
dad.
over in the van and is disorganized. I want to eliminate that.
Yep.
There's this sort of branding that exists for contractors that I want to eliminate.
You can't
And the
eliminate
idea-
them too quickly though, because they're basically what gives us all of our business. So slow the roll in the window cleaning
No,
industry.
you
all
guys
right?
have such an immense advantage that, by the way, what I'm talking about here, solving and changing this brand, Patrick, takes 5 to 10 years more.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but the idea here is that if I'm a homeowner, I never have to get this little tick in the back of my head like, oh, it's time to get a contractor or a tradesman. Let's see how this goes. Let's roll the dice on this one. It's like, no. Like there's actual systems that exist now, like that people can follow through. You never have that tick when you hire an accountant. Why? It's because there's systems and regulations for accounting businesses. But that tick exists for tradesmen and contractors because that has not been solved yet. And that is what I will solve. And I'll give you my word to that.
So yeah, another question I had for you was, how do you feel I know that personally I attribute a lot of my of who I am, as I think most people would be, but especially as an entrepreneur, I attribute to my parents and kind of how they raised me, as well as my experiences through childhood. So I wanted to know, how do you feel your upbringing resulted in you becoming the person you are today?
Yeah, so my family sacrificed everything. My dad sold his house that he built. My mom let go of her pharmacy degree that she worked for, and they left Jordan to come to Canada.
Was there a war going on then?
Pardon me?
Was there a war going on?
No, God no. But my dad is he used to run 2 businesses where he sold makeup and perfume. And whenever the industry, whenever the economy starts doing badly, guess which business gets hit the first?
It's one of the first to go.
Makeup
eh?
and perfume. Yeah, right. So, he started seeing this trend, and he's like, you know what? I don't want my children like studying here, so let's try and get them a Canadian citizenship. So when we came here to Canada, I just grew up quickly. It just became very clear that there was maybe no clear solution to what my family had to experience. So when I was in university, and I remember I was at a party and like I was playing beer pong, and somebody like behind the garage was like yelling, "Who wants a job?" And I'm like, you know what? I haven't worked the job ever. I'm like in the 12th grade. Me, I yell, right? And I go to him and he's like, yeah, there's this job opening at this golf and country club for you to be a food runner. So I said, you know what? Let me sign up for this. So I was a food runner for like 6-7 months. And it was hard. I have really like long fingers. So holding a lot of plates was like I just couldn't do it because I didn't have the finger strength, right? I was clumsy for some reason, even though I'm pretty not clumsy in almost everything. But when it came to like putting the protein like around somebody's shoulder in front of them on a table, I couldn't do it. When I was pouring water, I just pour it like I don't know, just pour it normally, not the fancy way, you know, because just not how I do things. But the biggest thing that I would look forward to in that job was, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Halloween, where the Golf and Country Club would have these events where they would invite all the members. And mind you, this was the #1 Golf and Country Club place in Canada. So like Trudeau and Tiger Woods would golf there, like Justin Trudeau. And these members pay an $80,000 initiation fee, and they have to spend $14,000 a year on food, and I think $25,000 on golf. So it's like yearly, or like if they don't spend it, like it gets deducted anyways, right? So these people would show up, and I would have these exchanges every now and then. I'd always wonder, like it's a Tuesday, sometimes would be a work day, and here they are, relaxed working, and I would talk to them. And it would seem like, oh, they're all business owners and they're entrepreneurs. And then I would go on YouTube and I would see like Ty Lopez and these very, very enrolling individuals who talked about entrepreneurship. And I started doing some research, and it seemed like the highest payout to your input was through business ownership.
So you didn't always want to be an entrepreneur?
I wanted to be a lawyer.
Oh, that's the same as me. I went into political science into university thinking I wanted to be a lawyer, and then got recruited by StudentWorks, and that's changed
so
everything.
That's interesting to me, because I feel that I always saw it that there was kind of two breeds of entrepreneurs. There were people that did it out of true inherent want and desire, and just like I always loved business. I didn't always want to be a business owner. I also wanted to go into law, but I was always trying to make money doing this or shoveling driveways or whatever. And it fascinated me and excited me. And then there's other people like my dad, who's also an immigrant, who just mostly became an entrepreneur out of necessity because no other job would hire and pay a reasonable amount to a guy who barely speaks English. But it sounds like you kind of were in the middle, where you didn't really care, and then you realized that it was the best payout. But not obviously, you're not doing it for the money, but it just made the most sense, and you chased that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm a pretty lazy guy. So if I wanted to be a lawyer, that means I had to pay my dues for 6 years before I was a partner. I didn't want to spend 6 years. Are you crazy?
That's a long time. Unless you absolutely love it. That is a long time.
Yeah. So I knew there had to be another way. And this one day I see this ad on I don't even know where. And I went to this meeting, and it was for StudentWorks, and I'm like, I'm too good for StudentWorks. I don't want to do this. So I talked to that person there, and it was Hannah. I'm like, Hannah, give me something harder, because this looks too easy. You're like recruiting students. I think I can do better. I was like filled with ego, and just it was terrible. I was terrible back then. And she was like, here, call this guy. And this guy was named Michael Hawley, who was running a ProWorks franchise. He was running Michael Hawley, running a painting business. And he wanted a sales manager. So I called him, impressed him on the phone. I'm like really good at public speaking and all that, so I was able to like slide in and get that interview. And he said, okay, here's what we're doing. We're going to go knock on doors. I'm like, okay, great. How much you paying per hour? I was like, oh, no. I don't pay you per hour. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you only get paid when you close a deal. I'm like, how much do I get paid? He's like, you get paid 10%. I'm like, oh, wait, but is there a cap to this? Like, what if I just sell like like $100,000. Like, you're gonna pay me 10 grand in like 3 months?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. I'm like, this is crazy. What is this called? And he's like, oh, this is called like pay per result. Like, this is what you're compensated for. I'm like, this. It was like a light beacon that was shined upon me.
I had a couple other questions. So a while back, probably 6 months ago, you and I had a relatively in-depth conversation about religion and its importance in your life. And I find that a lot of people that I know that are religious, I kind of don't really take it seriously, just because of the way that they're bought into the thing. I'm not a religious person at all myself. But our conversation was very interesting because I felt like you weren't attached to it because, you know, this is the way the Lord created you to be, and you have to listen to the invisible man in the sky. It was a lot more pragmatic in that, and that and you were open to the idea of even potentially not continuing to follow that way of thinking if it didn't continue to benefit you in your life. So I just wanted to kind of open the floor to you to talk about that and tell us your thoughts on where you're at there. And
Yeah. I think that was, I remember saying that. It was not exactly as how it was worded. It's not like I wouldn't follow it. Is that I am so, like, I understand the fundamentals and foundations of my religion, that the odds of it not serving me are so low. And that if it was to ever not serve me, which I'm betting that it would never will, then I would, like, I'm open to another possibility. But, I mean, it's just a roadmap, you know? It's just like saying, hey, here's what's recommended, here's what's not recommended, and then go. And then I just followed this roadmap, and my life has just been great. I mean, not drinking alcohol, I never had to worry about a lot of things that people worry about, right? And the amount of money I save too is pretty nice. When it comes to the daily practicing of these habits, there's other effects that, you know, for example, praying, it's kind of like meditating. You know, there's this time slot where you're practicing gratitude. I mean, isn't that powerful if people practice gratitude 5 times a day? When it comes to going to something like church or the mosque, I mean, here you are meeting with other people who believe in the same thing. It's why you joined EO. Here's this group of people that are meeting for the same thing. Just belonging in that space gives you this sort of power and energy. So there's that payoff there. When it comes to something I do, it's like Ramadan, where for 30 days I don't eat or drink water when the sun is up. That's around 14 to 16 hours throughout the day. My self-control doubles or triples, and my gratitude for my position in life, where I can just open a fridge and eat food and drink water, I mean, my perspective expands. And the list goes on and on and on. You know, we're also required to donate to charity and all that. And, you know, the times where I do donate to charity, even though I'm spending money, I've never felt richer, right? And it's like, isn't that something? So just all the aspects that are tied to my religion have just never been in the way and have always added to my life. And I think that's mainly because I have, I'm a philosophy, I have a degree in philosophy. So in there, you're always taught to ask questions. And I went back to the foundations and fundamentals of my religion, and I asked, like, okay, does this make sense? Like, why is that there? And I've been able to choose my religion versus be indoctrinated in it automatically. It's a great thing. And I think it just adds to my life versus takes away, because I have this right perspective.
Fuck yeah.
Well, awesome.
Anything else on that?
No, I mean, that's a really cool perspective. I mean, I'm personally not very religious, but I see the value in it, and I really respect what you said about you having like thought deeply about it, and you actually have chosen your religion instead of being kind of like dogmatically like just kind of shoved into it like I think probably most people are. That's the way I think everybody should be, you know?
Yeah. No, thank you for that. Yeah.
Well, is there anything you wanted to say before we wrapped up?
No, just thank you, man. Really.
Thank you.
Thank
I've had
you.
I've had a lot
You're,
of
you're
fun.
our first,
I've had a lot of fun.
guest.
Yeah, first guest, and
Wait, first guest? Are you serious?
yeah.
Oh my
You're the first
God.
guest, the inaugural guest. Actually, before we let you go, anybody who's looking to find the consulting business, where can they find you?
Oh, just go to go.tradearcconsulting.com, and that's arc with a C, tradearcconsulting.com, go.tradearcconsulting.com.
Cool.
And
Yeah.
for
Awesome,
the
man.
And for the podcast, we're on Spotify, iTunes, all over the place that you can find us at The Weekly Call Pod. So,
The weekly call.
yeah,
Awesome.
thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you for your time, man.
Thank you so much, Amer. It's been fantastic, and we'll link you up when
We'll let you know when this is going to
Post it.
drop. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick, just checking in quickly after the episode to say thank you so much for listening or watching. We really appreciate it. We've got some super cool interviews lined up in the near future. We're very excited about them, and we think they're going to bring a lot of value to a lot of people. So make sure that you subscribe on your platform of choice. We are officially available on all major podcasting platforms and on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe there and stay tuned for more. We'll see you next time.